and welcome viewers. I'm Pia and you're watching Gulf Today on NewsX. Well, let's take a look at the top stories this hour. US President Donald Trump has warned that Hamas must halt internal killings in Gaza, stating that force may be used to disarm the group. He's clarified that US troops will not enter the region, leaving action to local forces. Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to the ceasefire deal with Israel and has stated that it's working to return all remaining bodies of Israeli captives who lost their lives during captivity. But according to local reports, Hamas has claimed it cannot return the remaining hostages' bodies without equipment to clear the rubble. Israeli airstrikes hit multiple areas in southern and eastern Lebanon, killing 1 and injuring 7. Lebanese President Aoun has warned of increased troop deployment to ensure border security. Iran's Supreme National Security Council Chief Ali Larijani has met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow to discuss bilateral relations and cooperation following the recent strategic partnership treaty between the two countries. US President Donald Trump announced that he expects to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest within 2 weeks, stating that their recent phone call achieved great progress. The Kremlin, meanwhile, has described the conversation as frank and trustful. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he expects the momentum from the Middle East peace deal to help end Russia's war with Ukraine, and he's preparing to meet Donald Trump very soon to discuss the Tomahawk missile deal. US President Donald Trump claims that India would halt Russian oil purchases. India's Ministry of External Affairs has responded, stating that the interest of its consumers and its citizens is paramount. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom has imposed sanctions on major Russian firms and Chinese energy assets. China has slammed this move, claiming that the West is engaging in unilateral bullying. A Mexican crime group launched a makeshift drone with explosives at the State Attorney General's office in Tijuana, damaging vehicles but causing no injuries. The US consulate has issued a security alert and authorities have maintained that a large organized crime group was responsible for this. Alright viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. US President Donald Trump has warned that additional US-backed action may be necessary if Hamas fails to uphold its ceasefire commitments in Gaza. He's also noted that more bodies of hostages held by the group have been returned to Israel. Listen in.
Well, I'm looking at what's happening, and that wasn't the deal that was made, and we'll see what happens. It's calmed down. It's a tough neighborhood. We know that. We have a commitment from them, and I assume they're going to honor that commitment. I hope they do. And I understand they brought back some additional bodies today. It's a rough deal when you think of it, right? Very rough. We have our hostages back completely. We were very lucky with that. But it's a tough situation. They brought back bodies today, as you probably know. But they also said they're going to behave. We're going to find out if they behave. If they behave, good. If they don't behave, we'll take care of it.
Meanwhile, Hamas has mentioned that the return of remaining hostages' bodies could take time, as some are buried in tunnels and others remain under the rubble of buildings that have been bombarded by Israel. Meanwhile, in other developments, Israel has announced that it is preparing to reopen Gaza's Rafah crossing with Egypt, but meanwhile has set no date, while continuing to press Hamas to return the remaining bodies of 19 hostages who lost their lives in captivity. Now, according to authorities in Gaza and Hamas officials, the handover of additional bodies requires admission of heavy excavating equipment into the enclave. Additionally, a senior Hamas official has accused Israel of ceasefire violations, alleging at least 24 deaths have occurred since then. Local health authorities have also reported that 7 people have been killed across Gaza yesterday, including 2 in Khan Yunis following Israeli fire. Moreover, warplanes and drones were reported over the southern strip, with sporadic gunfire heard from time to time. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Yossi Cooper-Wasser, Israeli intelligence and security expert, joining us from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We've heard what the US president has had to say regarding this. He has stated that if the bodies of the hostages who lost their lives in captivity are not handed over in time, the United States will have to intervene to ensure this. Though he has said troop presence on the ground by the United States would be there, they would not directly take action and they will leave it to local forces. What, in your assessment, is Trump hinting by leaving the local forces element rather ambiguous?
Well, first of all, good morning. Secondly, I believe that he refers to the possibility that if Hamas doesn't deliver and doesn't stand by its commitment according to the deal, Israel is going to be allowed to finish the job militarily. And that was what President Trump said when the plan was introduced back in Washington at the time. And now he repeated that in several occasions. And not that we are looking forward to that. We want to see the deal implemented. We want to see Hamas delivering the bodies of the dead hostages, still 19 missing. We believe, based on intelligence, that they have the knowledge about the whereabouts of quite a few of them, and they can deliver them without any need for special equipment. And if in the end there are going to be several bodies that cannot be found without the use of special equipment, then some process should be worked out that would be affording for them to have the equipment for a limited period of time and used for that purpose only, because we know that they want to use the equipment for other purposes as well. That should not be allowed. And the bigger problem is awaiting us. It's, the hostages are a big problem by itself, but the bigger problem is waiting just behind the corner, because we are still waiting for Hamas to accept the deal in the sense that it calls for its disarmament and giving up the control of Gaza. What we see on the ground is just the opposite. They are strengthening the control of Gaza, executing, as a matter of fact, their opponents and or those who they consider to be opponents. And this is what's happening in Gaza right now.
Indeed, I was just about to bring that up as well. We've seen executions take place by Hamas officials in Gaza. Ordinary Palestinians have been shot in the head and executed. In the meantime, Israel has announced that it is preparing to reopen Gaza's Rafah crossing with Egypt, but has set no date. What is Israel's primary concern with the reopening of this particular crossing?
Well, the opening of the crossing was supposed to happen after the hostages, all the hostages are returned. We still miss 19 hostages, and that's why we debate whether we should open the Rafah crossing or not, because on the one hand, we want to see more humanitarian aid coming into Gaza. On the other hand, we are worried that if we are going to allow more humanitarian aid coming in without anything being done by Hamas, then what is the point of this entire agreement? And, there's no shortage of equipment or humanitarian material in Gaza. There is no shortage of that right now, but we are following very closely the situation to make sure that we are not fooled by Hamas in order to bring in more stuff that's going to be taken by Hamas and used in order to strengthen its position instead of helping the population. And that was the practice of Hamas throughout the war.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us as we track further updates. In the meantime, Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to the ceasefire deal with Israel and claims that it intends to return all remaining bodies of Israeli hostages still in Gaza. The group says the process may take time, as some bodies were buried in tunnels or destroyed after strikes by Israel. Meanwhile, others remain under the rubble from buildings that were bombarded and demolished. Israel, in the meantime, has warned that if Hamas fails to return the bodies, it will resume fighting in Gaza. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Yossi Cooper-Wasser, Hamas coming out and reaffirming its commitment to the ceasefire. This is what it has stated. Can these claims really be taken at face value?
Well, they are definitely committed to the ceasefire. From their point of view, the ceasefire is the end of the war. We are ready to see that as the end of the war if all the hostages are returned and Hamas lays down their arms. But they understand that this is a quid pro quo. It's not the end of the war without them performing their side of the agreement. And that's what they mean by when they say we are committed to the ceasefire. It's we are committed on our interpretation of the ceasefire, not according to the plan. And they have to perform the plan as it was phrased. Unfortunately, this is not happening, and if this is not going to happen, we shall have to resume the military operations and remove Hamas from power by force, this time with full support of the Americans, because they understand that Hamas cannot be trusted and is not delivering, not on the question of disarmament, not on the question of returning the hostages.
Indeed, you've spoken of the Americans. Now, as far as this particular deal is concerned, it's in everyone's interest that it be achieved according to the elements, the clauses that have been put down, at least in the first phase, whether it is Israel, it's the Americans, or Hamas itself. What do you think is in it for the Americans if Hamas does not return the bodies and then Israel, ensures ground action?
Look, I think it's mainly about credibility, and I think for President Trump, credibility is very important. He's given his name to this plan, and he's supposed to be the head of the Board of Peace that's going to implement or oversee the implementation of the plan.
Yes.
And he's personally involved in that. And when Hamas gives him a commitment, as he personally said, he said, I spoke with them and they gave me the commitment that they're going to deliver return the hostages, all of the hostages, and disarm. And so when you give a promise to a commitment to the President of the United States and then you don't execute it, then you are in a problematic situation. And for President Trump to accept that his word is going to be ignored and not respected is something that is he cannot afford. And that's why he's allowing Israel to take whatever necessary measures in order to make sure that his commitment is respected.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. Meanwhile, viewers, we're tracking some important updates coming in from northern Israel. We're learning that 2 men have been shot dead near the Bedouin village of Ibtin, close to the city of Haifa. Now, as per reports, emergency services received an alert of a violent incident, after which paramedics arrived to find both men, who are in their 40s, to be unresponsive and without pulse. They were declared dead at the scene itself. The Israeli police has launched an investigation and they are now searching for the suspect behind this particular attack. Authorities say the shooting is being treated as a criminal case, with no indication so far that it was a terror-related attack. Meanwhile, in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, families have gathered at the Nasser hospital to identify loved ones whose bodies were returned by Israel under the ceasefire agreement mediated by US President Donald Trump. Now, as part of the deal, Israel has agreed to hand over 15 Palestinian bodies for each deceased Israeli, with relatives in Gaza using photos provided by the Ministry of Health to confirm their identities. Listen in to what their relatives have had to say.
جيت أنا أطلع على ابني اللي هو فقدته أنا يوم 7 أكتوبر، فطلعت على الشاشة في الملامح مش مبينة من الوجه من عن التعذيب والعذاب لأنه عدو ظالم هذا. فكيف فإحنا كنا نقول يا رب الشهادة في سبيل الله أحسن ما يقع بين يديهم. فالحمد لله ربنا كرمه بالشهادة جميعا. فإحنا اللي عرفناه من الشمع اللي في وجهه اللي إنه طاروا وفي السنين الفك اللي قدام من جثته.
استحالة التعرف على الجثامين بطرقنا البدائية الموجودة لعدم وجود أي وسائل أو مختبرات أو أجهزة للتعرف وعدم وصول أي معلومات للآن من الجانب الإسرائيلي لجثامينها بسبب أنه إحنا ليس لدينا وسيلة أكيدة للتعريف لجأنا لإنشاء رابط عبر وزارة الصحة لرفع عليه صور مختارة من الجثامين التي تراعي حرمة وكرامة الميت دون مساس بخصوصيته لإتاحة الفرصة لأهاليهم وذويهم من التعرف عليهم، من ثم الوصول إلينا في مجمع ناصر الطبي في المستشفى الميداني علماء بلا حدود للتعرف الميداني عبر اللابتوب وعبر الشاشة.
Meanwhile, in Gaza City, displaced residents, while returning to their homes, are now confronted with widespread rubble and damage, forcing many to seek shelter in makeshift camps near the Gaza port. These families are facing severe food shortages, with children and vulnerable residents struggling to gain access to basic nutrition amidst the ongoing humanitarian crisis. This comes even as a fragile ceasefire agreement remains in place. Let's in fact listen in and take a look at what the Gazans have to say.
الجنوب كنا في الشارع وهنا في الشارع، والله العظيم الشادر هذا اللي شايفينه ما هو إلي، وحدايد لملمنا من هنا ومن هنا، سطرنا البنات هنا جوا، وأنا هنا عيلتين مش عيلة واحدة، في أيتام عندي وفي عيلتي، هاي عيلتين. ضلينا هنا عسبة إنه في تكية وفي إشي اللي يقوت الأولاد، يعني يأكلوا ويشربوا، المي بصعوبة، الأكل بصعوبة، الحياة صعوبة. وعندي والله ولد البكر مات من الجوع، كان مريض سرطان في الجنوب ومات من قلة الأكل وقلة الغذاء وهي فرشت هي بنام بالشارع أنا، بس بنستر البنات والصغار جوا، يعني لو شتيت الدنيا بنغرق، ولو ايش ما يصير لو ضلينا زي ما احنا بنحرقوا من الشمس.
صغارنا هذول ما بياكلوش شيء، اسرائيل مسكروا كل الحدود ومسجلوا كل المعابر ومش متوين، ولا في عندنا فراش ولا عندنا بطانيات ولا عندنا خيم ولا عندنا حاجه، احنا موجودين هنا. حتى المساعدات اللي بنتلقاها، المي اللي بتجينا المي ما بنقدرش نحتصل عليها، لانه بيجينا في اليوم بعض احيان سياره وبعض احيان ما بيجيناش. هاي المي قدامك زي ما انت شايف، هذول بضلن عندي لا شربي ولا غسيل الاولاد ولا تغسيل، بضلن طول اليوم شوي شوي بالقطره بنشرب ميه، وبعض احيان بنستعين انه الواحد يغسل له بنطلون او قميص كل اسبوع او كل اسبوعين.
Shifting focus to more developments. Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran, Ali Larijani, has stated that during his visit to Moscow, he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and gave him a message from the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic, Ali Khamenei. Now, as per reports, the two sides discussed a range of issues, including bilateral relations, economic cooperation, regional developments, and international affairs as well. This visit comes as tensions between Iran and Israel soared after Israel launched an attack on Iran on the 13th of June, which triggered a 12-day war. Later, the United States also intervened, bombing 3 Iranian nuclear sites, killing top commanders and nuclear scientists as well, following which we've seen Iranian proxies, including Hezbollah and Hamas, now being considerably weakened as well. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Peter Baum, foreign editor of Weekly Blitz, joining us from London. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. As I've mentioned, Iran has witnessed a series of setbacks this year. I want to understand from you, how have Russian interests in the Middle East been impacted by this?
Hello, Pierre, and thank you again for having me. I think Iran, as we've spoken about several times recently, is more isolated now militarily and politically than she has been for decades. The sanctions are having a severe effect on what was an already dire economic situation for Iran. Her proxies have been very much defeated after all the billions of dollars that Iran has pumped into them. And the most important story, which seems to be missing from all this, is the drought and the natural disasters impacting Iran for the last year. reservoirs are losing water, dams are at their lowest ever, there's been a series of sandstorms, agricultural production is virtually non-existent. Afghanistan has cut off a water supply to Iran, which was agreed under international conditions. So the Iranian government is finding itself under the most dire isolation and economic conditions that she has faced for decades. She needs Russia and Russia's connections with the wider world to promote her interests. And that is what's going on here. Russia can play a key role provided that the Trump administration is able to convince Russia in its war with Ukraine to, I don't know how to put this as a euphemism, to lower the temperature. Obviously, everyone would like to see an end to the war in Ukraine, and hopefully Donald Trump can bring about that. But for the meantime, because of Russia's connections and meetings with the Trump administration, Iran, who has been totally isolated, needs Russia to get her message across and what she would like to achieve and what she would like to happen going forward. So Putin will be playing a vital role in sending Iran's message to the wider world.
Indeed. And speaking of Iran in particular, we've discussed this earlier as well. They've stated that they're open to a US proposal on the nuclear weapons that they have, although they have drawn a red line as far as their nuclear enrichment and the program itself is concerned. Do you really think they have the bandwidth to draw these lines, considering the fact that if they go down this particular road, with the sanctions imposed on them, their economy would be further crippled?
You're absolutely right, and I don't think they have the bandwidth, as you put it. I think any Iranian statements or rhetoric about enacting their nuclear program is bluff. I don't think currently they may have the raw materials, they may have that certainly, but they do not have the current capabilities to create the environment in which they will pose a nuclear threat to the region. Of that, most military analysts have no doubt. The Americans, with Israeli help, dealt a severe blow to Iran's nuclear ambitions, from which, even if she started now, would take decades to get back to where she wants to be in order for Iran to pose a threat. So I think any statements made are used for propaganda, but are actually useful to Iran's enemies. So Netanyahu could say, see, I told you, Iran, if we don't ensure that they don't continue with their nuclear ambition, we may have to go to war with them. So it actually perversely suits both sides. It suits the Iranians from a propaganda point of view, and it suits Netanyahu also from a propaganda point of view. But military analysts are quite convinced that Iran was dealt such a severe blow that she doesn't have the current capabilities to reenact her nuclear program, and if she did so, it would put, as you rightly say, even more pressure on what is a dire economic situation. She doesn't have the funds to do so, and it would be staggering if she put more money into that program rather than sort out the domestic problems which could yet easily topple the regime.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, sir, I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates. The Israeli army has carried out 12 airstrikes across southern and eastern Lebanon, killing 1 person and injuring at least 7. This information is according to Lebanese authorities. Lebanon's state news agency reported strikes in Sidon, Nabatea, Marjayouin, Bint Jbeil and Baalbek, including a drone attack on Blida as residents harvested olives. The Lebanese Health Ministry has confirmed the casualties, while national news agency described massive explosions and shockwaves that sparked panic. Meanwhile, Israel claimed that it targeted Hezbollah weapon sites in the region. However, President Joseph Aoun has accused Israel of attacking infrastructure to derail Lebanon's recovery and has stated that the Lebanese army will boost troop deployment south of the Litani River to 10,000 by the year's end, working with the UNIFIL to enforce UN Resolution 1701. Israel's strikes mark a fresh escalation and the violation of the 2024 ceasefire agreement, which required full Israeli withdrawal from southern Lebanon by Jan 2025, a step which is not yet completed. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Peter Boehm. So how do you view this increased escalation along Israel's border with Lebanon now that we're seeing relative peace? As far as Gaza is concerned, could this region once again become volatile, or should we now then see the parties coming to a negotiating table?
Yes. Now, Hezbollah are trying to re-establish themselves as a military threat and force. A military threat to Israel and a military threat and force within Lebanon. Israel will not let that happen, and Hezbollah, if she continues to try and rearm, will face similar airstrikes as we've seen before. It's really up to Lebanon to try and strengthen its military forces in order to deter Hezbollah. And until Lebanon is in a position to do so, which she's trying to do, Hezbollah will seek to identify those weaknesses within the Lebanese government and try to rearm itself. Syria can play a vital role in this because Syria has absolutely no interest in seeing a strong Lebanon. So if Israel is able, with the Lebanese government and Syria, to try and deter Hezbollah, then I think we will see tensions decrease dramatically. The Trump administration will play, again, a vital role in this. But as far as UNIFIL is concerned, I don't think any parties, and I think we've spoken about this before, trust UNIFIL because it's been in the past such an inadequate force. They may as well not have been there. I think I may have mentioned before it was made up mainly of an Irish contingent, perhaps a Spanish contingent, I think even some from Norway, and they were absolutely hopeless. They may as well, it was a tin pot army that achieved nothing whilst it was out there, and other than being a little bit of public relations for the United Nations, it's really up to Syria, Lebanon, Israel to deter Hezbollah, and hopefully Trump will recognise that if he sees Hezbollah as trying to destabilise the area, we'll try and do something about that too. So as long as Hezbollah continues to try and establish itself re-establish itself, I should say, as a military force, we will see continued outbreaks of hostilities from Israel, and as and when Lebanon, the Lebanese military, are able to train themselves, strengthen themselves, and get their house in order, I think only then we will see Lebanon, the Lebanese government, try to confront Hezbollah. I have no doubts that this time next week, if I happen to be privileged enough to be on your programme again, we may still be talking about a similar airstrike or confrontation between Israel and Hezbollah.
All right, sir. I'd like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on Gulf Today. Keep watching NewsX World for more such developments as we track them. With that, we dip into a quick short break.